Hello and welcome to Criminal Justice in a Nutshell. My name is Dr. John Fisher, and today's episode, or this episode of Criminal Justice in a Nutshell, is going to be called, or is entitled, Due Process. This video is for the Ashford University CRJ 514 class, Constitutional and Judicial Processes. This course is designed to help the Ashford graduate student, to get a greater understanding of the constitutional law, the constitutional rights that apply to offenders, and how the Supreme Court has adjusted and how they have worked the due process amendments into our judicial process and our criminal judicial process. The due process amendments are the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 14th Amendments, and I'm going to go over them briefly. As I've already stated and I've already mentioned in the past, that I have to keep these videos around 15 minutes, so it's a nutshell lecture, and it's going to be as quickly as I can possibly make it. So let's jump in. The Fourth Amendment is, as the text reads, the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or the things to be seized. This is the warrants. You always see it. Do you have a warrant? You can't come into my house. You can't search my house for a warrant. And this is an important amendment that we must know. And if you listen to Sean Hannity and the talking heads on the right, they're talking about these FISA warrant abuses because there was no probable cause for a FISA warrant. The information that was the FISA warrants were based on the Steele dossier, and the Steele dossier has been ruled and has been found to be fake and fictitious. So there's a whole bunch of people screaming for those Comey and Rosenstein and all of those guys who were involved with getting these FISA warrants against Donald Trump and his staff during the campaign, to have them answer for violating the Fourth Amendment. Donald Trump complained about it during the campaign and is still complaining about it, that his Fourth Amendment right was violated because there was no probable cause, and the wiretapping and the spying that was done on his campaign, he believes was unreasonable. That's not up to me to decide. That's up to somebody with a much higher pay grade and stature in society to decide than me. But the Fourth Amendment states that there will be no warrants issued without probable cause, and that probable cause has to be sworn to as the truth. And if it's not the truth, it's a lie, and thus you cannot get a warrant, or that warrant would be considered unjust and unconstitutional. The Fifth Amendment has several parts. Let me read it to you. No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on the presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in land or naval forces. They follow the UCMJ, and they have a completely different world. Okay, so, or in the militia, when in actual service in time of war, public danger, nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb, and shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against themselves, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without the due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. So in a nutshell, what does this say? This says that you must be indicted before you have to stand and answer for a capital offense. You must be indicted or presentment by a grand jury, and the grand jury has to true bill any charges against you before a warrant can be issued for your arrest, unless the police officer witnesses the crime in action. Otherwise, he has to have a warrant for your arrest. The second one is that you shall not be subject to the same offense twice, known as double jeopardy. You will not have to stand trial for the same offense twice. Okay, so let's say, for instance, I was charged with internet telephone treason, and in my workings, I was found not guilty of that offense. They couldn't go back to trial. They couldn't try me again. I shall not be compelled to testify against myself, and this is a big one. I don't have to testify one way or the other to prove my name and to prove my innocence. It's not my responsibility. It's not my job. It's the job of the prosecutor to prove that I am innocent, and I don't have to say a thing. And if you have a good attorney, he's going to keep you off of the stand. Okay, and a lot of people and a lot of lay people don't understand this. And they go, well, if he didn't do anything wrong, he'd get up on the stand and he would testify and he would tell the truth. Well, what happens is that the attorney, the prosecuting attorney, will do everything he can to make you present a lie or to present a untruth, and then he can just destroy you completely on the stand. And then the jury's going to find you guilty because he's turned around and he's made it to where you're not believable, and nothing you say can be believed at all. So a good attorney is going to keep you off the stand, even if you are innocent of any crime. I guess the biggest example of that would be Damien Echols. If you know about Damien Echols, he was sentenced to death for the West Memphis 3 killings of those 3 8-year-old boys. It took almost 20 years before they were let free on an Alford plea, because there's a whole lot of evidence that shows that they didn't do anything wrong. But he got up on the stand and he was destroyed by the prosecuting attorney, and the defense didn't believe anything that he had to say, and thus he went to prison. He went to death row. You will not be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. And the due process of law states is just that. Have all of these amendments been followed? Has the adversarial system been followed by the record and the law and the Constitution? The 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 14th Amendments. Okay, but a thing here, you shall not be deprived of life, liberty, or property. So the death penalty is constitutional. And in order to get rid of the death penalty in this country, the 5th Amendment's going to have to be struck. And do you really want the 5th Amendment struck? Do you want, attacking the 5th Amendment would be dangerous in my opinion. The 6th Amendment says, in all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy public trial by an impartial jury of the state and the district wherein the crime shall have been committed, which district shall have been previously ascertained by the law, and to be informed of the nature and causes of the accusations, to be confronted with witnesses against him, and to have a compulsory process for obtaining witnesses in your favor, and to have the assistance of counsel. So the 6th Amendment guarantees that you will have an attorney, and if you cannot afford an attorney, one will be provided to you by the state. That lawyer will help you put up and to create your defense. Okay? And you will have the right to a public trial, a free trial, a jury that says a jury of your peers. Well, it says a jury trial. But I would think that a jury of my peers, there was a Samuel L. Jackson movie called Time to Kill. I really like it, but he goes, oh, that's a jury of my peers? And I've noticed it. A jury of your peers comes from your neighborhood, comes from your zip code. I know this is a little braggadocious, but I have two bachelor's degrees, a bachelor's degree with a double major. I have 2 master's degrees, and I have a PhD in human services specializing in criminal justice. Okay, so who is my peer academically? There's very few people that could sit on my jury if I'm looking for my peers. I know that sounds a little elitist and braggadocious, but that's not what the courts and that's not what this meant. Okay. This meant a jury of my peers, the people that live in the same community that I live in. Okay, so I currently live in an RV park. But, my permanent address is in Odessa. So anybody that lives in Odessa can come and sit on my jury, regardless of their socioeconomic or racial background or ethnic background. Okay. But they live in my neighborhood. And because they live in my neighborhood, they're from my same zip code. It's thought that we have a lot of the same common interests, goals, ideas, and beliefs. So you're also allowed to put up a defense. You're allowed to cross-examine the witnesses against you. And you also get to know everything that the state has against you so that you can put up your defense. Okay? The state doesn't get the same privileges. They don't get to know what your defense is, but you get to know what their offense is and what they're accusing you of. And so that you and your appointed lawyer can put up a defense and turn around and say, hey, this is not true, this is not accurate, and you can show that there's reasonable doubt. You don't have to prove that you're innocent. You just have to prove that there's reasonable doubt that you committed the crime. Okay, so the Seventh Amendment is in suits of common law, which now we're looking at personal law, where the value of the controversy shall exceed $20, you have the right to a jury. And there's been a Supreme Court case that has raised this $20 limit to $500. They're saying petty crimes and petty fines, you don't have that. You can't enjoy that right. The Supreme Court has raised that number to $500 because, just about you can get $20 standing on the street corner with a sign that says, please help. So the courts have said that the offense and the crime has to be over $500. They have adjusted that. The Eighth Amendment says that excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted. Okay. The idea of the courts and the idea of the Eighth Amendment was to keep people free and to allow people to walk the streets and to be free. So they didn't want excessive bail set. Okay, so let's say that I work for the state of Texas and I make $36,000 a year and I have committed the crime of larceny. I stole something. What should my bail be set at? If it's set at $30,000, I'm never going to get free. I'm never going to be able to post bail. Even if I went to a bail bondsman, he's going to want 10%, and that's $3,000. That's more than I make in a month. Or more than I bring home in a month. So I would never be able to get bail. So the Eighth Amendment promises and protects bail to be affordable so that I can be free, I can work in the community, I can work in the economy, and I can give back while I'm waiting to go to trial. And it doesn't affect my job, it doesn't affect my relationships, my families, or my friends, or any of those things. Okay, so also is there will be no excessive fines. You can't put a fine on an individual that they will never ever be able to pay off. Okay, so that's improportionate. It's not fair. It's not just because all of a sudden this person who you have fined can't pay that fine. They're going to end up in jail, which is going to ruin their livelihood. It's going to ruin everything that they have. Okay, also cruel and unusual punishment, and there's a great big debate on whether or not the death penalty is cruel and unusual punishment, but some people say it is. A long time ago they'd have flogging, they'd have shaming, they'd do all kinds of weird punishments. They'd tie you to a post, to a wagon wheel, and spread eagle you on a wagon wheel and leave you for 3 or 4 days. So they was wanting to prevent and protect against those kinds of punishments. The last is the 14th Amendment. And the 14th Amendment also guarantees us, it has 5 parts to the 14th Amendment, but the part that's specific to us is the due process. The 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments were part of the slave amendments that freed the slaves in the United States and gave the African American population citizenship. The 14th Amendment also guaranteed that the African American population would also be able to receive due process, and that every law and every right that you found in the Bill of Rights also applied to the former slaves and today's African American population. So That is due process and the due process amendments in a nutshell. I hope that this has been edifying to you and helps you with this week's discussions. If you have any questions, make a comment below. You can send me an email through Canvas, or you can call me. If you're in my class, you know my phone number. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you in my next video. This is Dr. John Fisher. This has also been Criminal Justice in a Nutshell, the due process of criminal jurisprudence.